You speak your feelings to feel moral, but predators harvest that noise. Silence is discipline, emotion is leakage, and loyalty exposes your throat to the blade. You were trained to believe emotion is honesty and honesty is virtue. That belief is not innocent. It is a social technology designed to make you readable, predictable, and governable. The first operation is not self-control, it is lens destruction. Until you see emotion correctly, discipline is impossible. Emotion is not truth. Emotion is exposure. Every time you speak how you feel, you think you are clarifying reality. In fact, you are leaking coordinates. You are revealing priorities, thresholds, fears, attachments. In war, you do not announce morale levels. In surgery, you do not bleed openly. Yet in modern life, men are conditioned to narrate their inner state as proof of character. This is not courage. This is compliance dressed as virtue. Machiavelli's doctrine is brutal because it is accurate. Morality is context-bound, but power is constant. The moral lens you inherited tells you that silence is deception and expression is integrity. Power operates on the inverse. Silence is ambiguity. Ambiguity is protection. Protection is survival. When you emote publicly, you are not being authentic, you are being legible. And legibility is the raw material of control. Watch how systems function. Courts do not reward emotion, they reward restraint. Markets do not price feelings, they price signals. Predators in nature do not announce hunger, they still themselves until the strike. Only prey makes noise under stress. Only prey explains itself. The moral lens taught you that suppression is unhealthy. This is a psychological lie created by environments that profit from your disclosure. Emotional expression is framed as release, but release is not freedom. Release is loss of containment. Once released, emotion does not vanish. It relocates into the hands of whoever observed it. Power begins with containment. This chapter is not about becoming numb. Numbness is weakness too. Numbness is a failure of regulation. What replaces the moral lens is not repression, but sovereignty. You do not kill emotion, you subordinate it. You keep it inside until it serves a strategic function, or until it dissolves without consequence. The naive man asks, is it healthy to stay silent? The strategist asks, who benefits if I speak? That single question collapses the moral fantasy. Notice how often be open is demanded upward. Employees must be transparent. Citizens must express. Men must share. Meanwhile, institutions, elites, and predators remain opaque. This asymmetry is not accidental. It is extraction architecture. Emotional silence is not cruelty. It is calibration. Under the old lens, silence feels dishonest because you were trained to confuse expression with virtue. Under the new lens, silence is neutrality. Neutrality denies others the ability to frame you, rush you, guilt you, or shepherd you into reactions that serve their timeline. Reaction is the enemy of power. When you react emotionally, you surrender tempo. You move when others move you. You speak when others provoke. You reveal when others apply pressure. Silence breaks this chain. Silence forces the other party to act without data. Silence creates a vacuum, and vacuum induces mistakes. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. You are withdrawing a resource others are accustomed to harvesting. Expect resistance. Expect moral accusations. Cold, unhealthy, inauthentic. These are not diagnoses, they are pressure tactics. Machiavelli's doctrine is brutal because it is accurate. Morality is context-bound, but power is constant. The moral lens you inherited tells you that silence is deception and expression is integrity. Power operates on the inverse. Silence is ambiguity. Ambiguity is protection. Protection is survival. When you emote publicly, you are not being authentic, you are being legible. And legibility is the raw material of control. Watch how systems function. Courts do not reward emotion, they reward restraint. Markets do not price feelings, they price signals. Predators in nature do not announce hunger, they still themselves until the strike. Only prey makes noise under stress. Only prey explains itself. The moral lens taught you that suppression is unhealthy. This is a psychological lie created by environments that profit from your disclosure. Emotional expression is framed as release, but release is not freedom. Release is loss of containment. Once released, emotion does not vanish. It relocates into the hands of whoever observed it. Power begins with containment. This chapter is not about becoming numb. Numbness is weakness too. Numbness is a failure of regulation. What replaces the moral lens is not repression, but sovereignty. You do not kill emotion, you subordinate it. You keep it inside until it serves a strategic function, or until it dissolves without consequence. The naive man asks, is it healthy to stay silent? The strategist asks, who benefits if I speak? That single question collapses the moral fantasy. Notice how often be open is demanded upward. Employees must be transparent. Citizens must express. Men must share. Meanwhile, institutions, elites, and predators remain opaque. This asymmetry is not accidental. It is extraction architecture. Emotional silence is not cruelty. It is calibration. Under the old lens, silence feels dishonest because you were trained to confuse expression with virtue. Under the new lens, silence is neutrality. Neutrality denies others the ability to frame you, rush you, guilt you, or shepherd you into reactions that serve their timeline. Reaction is the enemy of power. When you react emotionally, you surrender tempo. You move when others move you. You speak when others provoke. You reveal when others apply pressure. Silence breaks this chain. Silence forces the other party to act without data. Silence creates a vacuum, and vacuum induces mistakes. This is why silence feels uncomfortable at first. You are withdrawing a resource others are accustomed to harvesting. Expect resistance. Expect moral accusations. Cold, unhealthy, inauthentic. These are not diagnoses, they are pressure tactics. Machiavelli's doctrine is brutal because it is accurate. Morality is context-bound, but power is constant. The moral lens you inherited tells you that silence is deception and expression is integrity. Power operates on the inverse. Silence is ambiguity. Ambiguity is protection. Protection is survival. When you emote publicly, you are not being authentic, you are being legible. And legibility is the raw material of control. Watch how systems function. Courts do not reward emotion, they reward restraint. Markets do not price feelings, they price signals. Predators in nature do not announce hunger, they still themselves until the strike. Only prey makes noise under stress. Only prey explains itself. The moral lens taught you that suppression is unhealthy. This is a psychological lie created by environments that profit from your disclosure. Emotional expression is framed as release, but release is not freedom. Release is loss of containment. Once released, emotion does not vanish. It relocates into the hands of whoever observed it. Power begins with containment. This chapter is not about becoming numb. Numbness is weakness too. Numbness is a failure of regulation. What replaces the moral lens is not repression, but sovereignty. You do not kill emotion, you subordinate it. You keep it inside until it serves a strategic function, or until it dissolves without consequence. The naive man asks, is it healthy to stay silent? The strategist asks, who benefits if I speak? That single question collapses the moral fantasy. Notice how often be open is demanded.
Every environment sorts men into roles, not by intention, by behavior, emotional behavior specifically. Once you understand the archetypes, you stop mislabeling danger as personality and start reading function. There are three dominant types in any social ecosystem: the talkers, the watchers, and the predators. The talkers believe expression creates connection. They narrate feelings, clarify intentions, explain reactions. They think transparency buys safety. In reality, talkers are raw material. They supply context, emotion, and motive free of charge. They believe they are participating. They are being processed. Talkers are not weak by nature. They are exposed by habit. They speak under pressure. They explain when accused. They fill silence to relieve discomfort. Each act reduces their strategic depth. Over time, they become predictable. Predictability invites management. Above them sit the watchers. Watchers do not provoke immediately. They collect. They ask neutral questions. They nod. They mirror. They let others speak themselves open. Watchers understand asymmetry intuitively. Whoever speaks more loses position. They may appear passive, even empathetic. This is camouflage. Watchers are not necessarily malicious, but they are dangerous by consequence. Information accumulates upward. The watcher gains leverage simply by remaining still. While the talker empties himself, the watcher builds a map: fears, triggers, loyalties, ambitions. When conflict arises, the watcher already knows where to apply pressure or how to step aside and let others destroy you. Then there are predators. Predators weaponize emotion deliberately. They provoke, flatter, threaten, or moralize, not to communicate, but to extract. Their goal is reaction. Once they get it, they own tempo. They escalate because escalation forces leakage. They accuse because defense requires explanation. Predators do not need to be intelligent. They only need emotional literacy and patience. They thrive in cultures that worship expression. In such cultures, silence is treated as guilt and restraint as hostility. This flips the burden of proof onto the disciplined. Predators exploit this inversion relentlessly. The critical error is assuming these roles are fixed identities. They are not. They are positions you occupy by behavior. A man becomes a talker the moment he fills silence with feeling. He becomes a watcher the moment he withholds reaction. He becomes a predator the moment he learns to provoke without revealing. Most men oscillate unconsciously. The disciplined man chooses. The lesson is not to become a predator. Predators attract resistance and long-term retaliation. The lesson is to never remain a talker in hostile terrain. Talkers are selected against. They are used, drained, framed, or discarded. Emotional silence shifts you upward automatically. When you stop reacting, watchers notice. Predators miscalculate. Talkers grow uncomfortable. Silence reorganizes the room without a word spoken. Hierarchy adjusts to opacity. This is why emotional silence triggers hostility. It removes access. It breaks familiar scripts. Those who benefit from your openness will attempt to restore it through guilt, intimacy demands, moral pressure, or urgency. You're being distant. You've changed. Just be honest. These are not requests. They are extraction attempts. The sovereign response is not argument. It is continued restraint. Explanation reopens the channel. Defense invites penetration. Silence preserves position. This chapter installs the third rule. Never confuse emotional roles with moral character. Good men can be talkers. Nice people can be predators. Power does not care about intentions, only outcomes. Once you see the archetypes, you stop personalizing interactions. You stop seeking validation from those who profit from your disclosure. You begin to move deliberately between roles or refuse the game entirely. From this point forward, you are no longer blind in social terrain. You can see who feeds, who watches, and who leaks. And once you see that, silence stops feeling unnatural. It feels necessary. History does not reward the expressive. It records the restrained. The men who survived purges, court politics, revolutions, and succession crises were not the loudest, most honest, or most emotionally transparent. They were the least legible. They understood that power flows towards silence the way predators move toward stillness. Look at any violent transition of power. The talkers die first. Those who announced loyalties were identified. Those who expressed outrage were catalogued. Those who moralized were predictable. The survivors were the quiet ones, the men who watched shifts before declaring allegiance, who revealed nothing until outcomes were irreversible. This is not cynicism, it is pattern recognition. Human nature has not evolved past tribal selection. Emotional expression once signaled trust inside small groups. But in large, anonymous, competitive systems, that same signal becomes a liability. What once bonded now exposes. What once protected now isolates. The modern man is operating with outdated instincts in a hostile environment. Consider courts, monarchies, criminal empires, corporate hierarchies, different costumes, same mechanics. Power consolidates around those who control information flow. Those who speak less are harder to accuse, harder to corner, harder to remove. Silence creates plausible ambiguity. Ambiguity creates survival margins. Machiavelli observed this without sentiment. Men are punished more often for openness than deception, because openness creates evidence. History's winners mastered emotional minimalism. They were not emotionless, they were unreadable. Notice the pattern in purges and betrayals. The outspoken idealist is eliminated. The emotionally reactive rival is framed. The silent operator remains, not because he was better, but because he was harder to define. Definition is the precursor to destruction. Once you are defined, emotionally, morally, or ideologically, you can be targeted. Silence resists definition. It keeps you between categories, outside clean narratives. This frustrates enemies and exhausts accusers. Human beings crave coherence. When denied it, they overreach. This is why silence provokes escalation. When others cannot read you, they project. Projection leads to mistakes. Mistakes expose intent. History's quiet winners let enemies reveal themselves first. The expressive man believes emotion humanizes him. In power struggles, it objectifies him. Emotion gives your opponent a story to tell about you. Silence forces them to invent one, and invented stories collapse under scrutiny. Even revolutions confirm this. The loud ideologues ignite chaos, then disappear. The quiet administrators inherit the ruins. Power is never seized by those who shout about it longest. It is collected by those who wait. This chapter is not romantic, it is corrective. You were taught that visibility equals impact. History teaches the opposite. Visibility invites containment. Every system neutralizes what it can clearly see. This is why institutions demand transparency from you, but practice opacity themselves. This is why leaders speak in abstractions and act in silence. This is why the most dangerous figures often appear dull, calm, unremarkable, until it is too late. Emotional silence is not withdrawal from life. It is alignment with selection pressure. The men who endure are those who minimize broadcast and maximize positioning. They do not rush to signal virtue. They do not clarify feelings under pressure. They do not defend themselves emotionally. They let time work for them. This chapter installs the fourth rule. History selects for opacity, not sincerity. If this feels uncomfortable, good. Comfort is not the metric. Survival is. Power is. Continuity is. The question is no longer whether emotional silence is healthy. The question is whether you want to be legible in a system that consumes legibility. History has already answered.
Silence alone is not strategy. Silence without control becomes avoidance. What replaces naive expression is not muteness, but command. This chapter installs doctrine, the rules governing when emotion is permitted to exist outside you and when it is kept sealed. The first principle is containment. You do not suppress emotion. Suppression creates internal pressure and eventual rupture. Containment is different. Containment means emotion is acknowledged internally, analyzed, and delayed. Delay is the filter. Most emotions decay when denied an audience. Those that remain after delay are information, not impulses. Emotion felt immediately is noise. Emotion that survives delay is signal. The second principle is timing. Expression is never immediate. Immediate expression hands control to the trigger. Whoever provoked you dictates the moment. You speak on their schedule. This is submission disguised as honesty. Under doctrine, you never speak from the emotional peak. You speak from the emotional valley after the chemical surge has passed and cognition has returned. If the emotion expires before that moment, it was never worth expressing. The third principle is audience. Emotion is not shared broadly. Broad sharing multiplies vulnerability. Expression, when allowed, is targeted. You choose the recipient based on power symmetry and incentive alignment. If the listener benefits from your exposure, you remain silent. This single rule would eliminate most personal disasters. The fourth principle is calibration. When you do express, you do not express fully. Full expression is loss of leverage. You reveal only what advances position. Partial disclosure creates the illusion of openness while preserving core opacity. This is not deception, it is boundary enforcement. Power does not require lies, it requires limits. The fifth principle is reversibility. Never express emotion that cannot be walked back. Words create records, social, psychological, digital. Once spoken, they cannot be unspoken. Doctrine demands that anything you release can be reframed, denied, or neutralized later. If it locks you into a narrative, it stays internal. This is why emotional silence favors long-term dominance. It preserves optionality. Under this doctrine, speech becomes surgical. Silence becomes default. Emotion is treated like ammunition, stored safely, deployed rarely, and never fired in panic. This shift alone reorders your interactions. People stop testing you emotionally because tests no longer produce results. Provocations fail.
Guilt tactics collapse. Urgency loses teeth. When nothing leaks, manipulation starves. Notice what happens when you stop explaining yourself. Others either escalate, revealing desperation, or retreat. Both outcomes increase your leverage. Controlled expression also corrects a deeper error, the belief that being understood is necessary for being respected. Respect flows from consequence, not comprehension. You do not need to be emotionally legible to be taken seriously. You need to be consistent, restrained, and unpredictable in reaction. Silence creates space. Space creates authority. This chapter is where most men resist. They fear becoming cold. But coldness is not absence of feeling, it is absence of impulsive display. The world confuses the two because it profits from confusion. Doctrine replaces instinct. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing. You are no longer confessing, you are signaling. You are no longer relieving pressure, you are redirecting it. This chapter installs the fifth rule. Expression is a tool, not a habit. Once expression becomes intentional, emotional silence stops feeling like deprivation. It feels like advantage. You stop bleeding into conversations. You stop donating leverage. You stop negotiating against yourself. What remains is composure, not as aesthetics, but as function. The next step is irreversible. This is where sentiment dies. You cannot practice emotional silence while clinging to an identity built on expression. The two are incompatible. One leaks, the other seals. This chapter is not about improvement, it is about replacement. The expressive self must be executed. That identity, the honest man, the emotionally available man, the loyal explainer, was formed to survive in environments that no longer exist. It was rewarded in classrooms, families, and controlled settings. It is punished in competitive reality. Keeping it alive is not virtue, it is negligence. Identity is behavior repeated under pressure. Change the behavior or keep the identity. You do not get both. The old self believed being seen was safety. That belief is false. Visibility is exposure. Exposure invites judgment. Judgment invites control. The expressive identity survives only when protected by benevolent authority. Remove that protection, and it becomes prey. This is why emotional silence feels like betrayal at first. You are not betraying others, you are betraying a version of yourself trained for captivity. Execution is clean or it fails. You do not tone down expression, you remove it as a default. You do not announce the change, you do not justify it. Explanation resurrects the corpse. You simply stop. No declarations, no boundary speeches, no moral framing. Silence does the killing. Those attached to your old identity will resist, not because they care about your health, but because they benefited from your access. Expect confusion, accusations, nostalgia. These are withdrawal symptoms in others. You remain still. A new identity forms in the vacuum, the unreadable man. The unreadable man is not hostile, he is neutral. Neutrality denies emotional hooks. Without hooks, others must engage you on substance or not at all. Most cannot. This identity does not seek understanding, it seeks position. It does not explain intent, it demonstrates outcome. It does not emote under pressure, it waits until pressure collapses. Over time, others adjust. They speak carefully, they reveal more, they test less. You have shifted the power dynamic without confrontation. This is the hidden benefit of identity execution. Conflict decreases, not because you are softer, but because you are harder to move. Internally, something else happens. Emotions lose urgency. Without expression as an outlet, they are processed faster. The nervous system recalibrates. What once demanded release now dissolves silently. This is sovereignty. The mistake is thinking this identity is performative. It is not posture, it is subtraction. You remove behaviors that never served you and call the result strength. Identity execution also ends false loyalty. When you stop expressing, you stop being recruited into emotional contracts you never agreed to. Guilt loses its grip. Obligation weakens. You choose allegiance based on interest and alignment, not pressure. This chapter installs the sixth rule: kill the identity that leaks, replace it with one that contains. There is no partial compliance here. You cannot keep the old self for close people. Close people are often the most extractive. Doctrine applies universally, with calibrated exceptions, not emotional exemptions. Once this identity stabilizes, you are no longer managing silence. Silence manages you. The final chapter delivers the warning.
There is no finish line. Most men secretly believe discipline is a phase, something you adopt, then relax once stability is achieved. This belief is fatal. Selection never stops. It only slows when you are alert and accelerates when you become comfortable. The world does not reward effort. It selects for function. Emotional silence is not a personality trait you display when convenient. It is a permanent operating condition. The moment you abandon it, out of fatigue, intimacy, nostalgia, or ego, you re-enter the pool of the harvestable, and the system notices immediately. You are always being evaluated, not consciously, not maliciously, but structurally. People test for reaction. Institutions probe for compliance. Predators scan for leakage. These tests never end. They pause only when nothing comes out. Silence is how you pass without being seen. This chapter delivers the final inversion. There is no such thing as safe expression, only tolerated expression. Tolerance is temporary. Power revokes it without notice. The man who relies on permission to be expressive is already owned. Selection favors the unremarkable, the unreadable, the unreactive. Look at who endures long term. They are rarely celebrated, rarely explained, rarely understood. They occupy space quietly and exit conflicts intact. They let louder men burn reputations, bridges, and alliances while they remain intact. This is not pessimism, it is strategy. You were taught to seek validation through being known. The doctrine replaces that impulse with a harder truth. Being unknown preserves maneuverability. Maneuverability preserves sovereignty. There is also no rescue. No one is coming to protect you from misinterpretation, exploitation, or emotional extraction. Appeals to fairness fail. Appeals to morality invite framing. Appeals to empathy expose leverage. Silence is the only defense that does not escalate conflict. The final warning is simple and unforgiving. Every emotional disclosure teaches others how to handle you. Every reaction conditions future pressure. Every explanation shortens your survival horizon. This doctrine is not for comfort, it is for continuity. If you adopt it, expect to feel isolated at first. Isolation is the price of autonomy. Over time, that isolation becomes respect or avoidance. Both are preferable to consumption. This is the elite line.
On one side, men who feel deeply, express freely, and wonder why they are always managed, misunderstood, or exhausted. On the other, men who feel privately, move deliberately, and remain ungovernable. Selection is happening whether you consent or not. The only question left is which category you belong to. Silence has already chosen its winners.